Avengers Doomsday has more than enough build-up for this movie to be good. And I think that even with the lack of appearances for Doctor Doom, it can still be a great movie. I also think it's unfair to measure Doctor Doom and Avengers Doomsday and even the Multiverse Saga under the same results of the Infinity Saga, because the Multiverse Saga is not the 10-year plan like the Infinity Saga was. And even with both sagas, if you continue to compare, there still has been build-up for both. For the Infinity Saga, the build-up and the main important part was the Infinity Stones. Throughout the movies, we've seen each one, what they can do, where they are located within the Marvel Universe. We knew that Thanos was going to be the big bad villain. Thanos was only the conduit of the total destruction of the Infinity Saga. Unlike Doctor Doom, Thanos has been the big bad since day one. There wasn't a villain before him where something happened and they pivoted from that villain to Thanos. With Doctor Doom, he wasn't the OG big bad of the Multiverse Saga, even though we always still were most likely going to get him because they were still going to do Secret Wars. But instead of doing Avengers Kang Dynasty, they now switched to Avengers Doomsday after the stuff that happened with Kang and even Jonathan Majors. Because those scenes in the Loki show and even in the movie Quantumania, Ant-Man 3 basically, those scenes could have been for Doctor Doom if Doctor Doom was the original big bad, but he wasn't. And for the fact that Loki and Ant-Man are in Avengers Doomsday, it just makes me think that we might even still get a mention of Kang. We just won't be getting Kang Dynasty. I also don't really understand the critique of the roster of the heroes in Avengers Doomsday, when it's funny because since day one, the heroes have always banded together to fight against overwhelmingly odds and forces of evil, and they still have came out on top. Even in Infinity War, the Avengers literally lost but won the very next movie, even with their heavy hitters Hulk and Thor getting dropped off in the first act of the movie, because to beat these level of threats and these big bad threats, it doesn't just take raw power, it takes strategy, it takes timing, and it takes union. The strength is in numbers with the intelligence and strategy to utilize it. That's how it's always been. Even Captain Marvel, when she went one-on-one with Thanos in Endgame, she even lost that exchange. And she's even more powerful than Thanos is. Thanos literally had to resort to using the stone last minute to get her off of him. And which I really hope she is in this movie along with Miss Marvel and Photon, Monica Rambeau, because the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men could use their help with dealing with the incursions and Doctor Doom. And the Marvel's Monica Rambeau literally sealed the wall between two different universes, which resulted her ending up in the Fox X-Men universe when their post-credit scene is her talking to Beast and Binary, which is part of the reason why the Fox X-Men are even in Avengers Doomsday. Adding the fact with what happened in Deadpool and Wolverine with Gambit and the Void. Another reason why the Fox X-Men are in this movie, and it's not just because of nostalgia, but also because Days of Future Past. The Fox X-Men universe is still alive because of that movie where they sent Logan's consciousness back in time to undo the future Sentinel outcome, which basically wiped out the mutant race. It's part of the reason why Scott is alive in Avengers Doomsday. So same thing with Magneto and even Professor X. Other build-up for incursions, which is the main thing the Multiverse Saga is about and is the greatest stake here, is in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, where he's jumping from universe to universe, dreamwalking, and he even caused an incursion at the end of it, which right now he's in the Dark Dimension with Clea trying to fix it. Or how about in Spider-Man No Way Home, where different universes Spider-Man came to the main Marvel universe. You have the whole entire Loki series, even WandaVision, even in Avengers Endgame, when the Ancient One was talking to Bruce Banner, she was explaining to him that if you remove the stones from the timeline, it's going to open up a bunch of nasty realities, so you have to replace them as they never left. And in that very same movie, that's exactly what Steve Rogers does. And in doing so, he created a branched timeline by living with Peggy while also aging as old man Steve Rogers to give Sam Wilson the shield, and which we hopefully see how exactly he did that in Avengers Doomsday. And no, Steve Rogers going to live a life with Peggy back in time did not cause an incursion because he didn't break the rules of the multiverse. All he did was create a branched timeline that was allowed to happen, stated by the TVA within Loki, within the same universe. The only way I could see Steve Rogers creating an incursion or causing to have one is if that universe that he lived a life with Peggy in was in a different universe, like seemingly the 828 universe. That one seems like the most compatible one because it's futuristic, but it's also retro. And he wouldn't also have to be Captain America or be a hero anymore because that universe is protected by the Fantastic Four. especially by the world's smartest man, Reed Richards. That universe didn't have a Thanos. That universe doesn't have the Infinity Stones, seemingly. And this would be allowed because Loki is now at the position of He Who Remains, holding the multiverse together. The Shang-Chi post-credit scene where it shows this new lineup of Avengers, where his rings are showing a beacon, it literally looks like the multiverse tree. It could have been a signal for Kang. It could have been a signal for anyone, but it looks like a map. It looks like a map to where Loki is. And I think that's how they find Loki. Or I think that's how Doctor Doom might find Loki and steal his power. But if those ancient relics can also be a map for places in the multiverse, who's to say Steve Rogers didn't find one of those? Or have some type of his own technology? And since Doctor Doom is a master sorcerer, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have his own type of artifact or relic to use for combat and also to travel the multiverse, as long as technology. Who knows if he came into contact with an agent from the TVA or a Kang variant? You never know. Because if Reed Richards knows about the multiverse, I would not put it past Doctor Doom to also know about it. They are damn near equally smart. But I'm going to give the edge to Reed. That's usually how it is in most of the stories. And from the dialogue in the Avengers Doomsday trailer for Doctor Doom, he knows about the multiverse. He's literally fighting heroes from different universes. When he is in the trailer saying, we will be faced with an unthinkable decision, he's talking about the incursions. He sees himself as the one that he can only do what needs to be done. He believes the heroes are beneath him. And what makes it even easier for him to be the hero of this situation, even though he's the villain, the antagonist, is that the incursions are caused by some of the heroes, and seemingly not even Doctor Doom. Doctor Strange, he caused an incursion. Other Doctor Stranges in the multiverse caused the incursions as well, as we saw in Multiverse of Madness. And even what happened in Spider-Man No Way Home with the other universe's Spider-Man coming to 616, that wasn't on the villains. And also add the dreamwalking from Wanda and then Monica Rambeau ending up in the Fox X-Men universe. These are on the heroes, not Doctor Doom. And also in the trailer, he talks about giving back the stolen lives. I assume he's talking about Steve Rogers, Loki, Thor, and even maybe the Fox X-Men. I say Steve Rogers because he chose to go live a life back in Peggy with the branch timeline. Then with Thor, his daughter, which was used to be Gore's daughter. And then the Fox X-Men are technically supposed to be dead in the Days of Future Past storyline. They go back in time to save it all. And then Loki's the biggest one because he's supposed to be dead too. He is a variant that altered his own death and ended up becoming what is literally holding the multiverse together. It's not just a sacred timeline, it's a sacred multiverse of timelines now, of universes and realities. It's also kind of hilarious seeing that people complain about the roster of this movie because all those newer characters that were introduced after Phase 4, a good majority of people rejected them. They rejected Ironheart, they rejected America Chavez, they rejected the Marvels, which I hope we see in this movie. The movies that made the most money after Endgame were Spider-Man No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and even Deadpool Wolverine. And there's no way you can convince me that those movies with a little bit of nostalgia, mostly in the story, had better story and better quality than movies like Shang-Chi, Wakanda Forever, Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, some of the projects that introduced the Young Avengers, which the Young Avengers were also rejected, and they didn't even get a project. If Avengers Doomsday is mainly going to rely on nostalgia and hype moments, I'm not even going to be surprised, bro. And I really don't want that, but I won't be surprised because that's where the money has been after Endgame, especially from the same people who've said the Endgame has died after Endgame. And I really hope Marvel does not listen to that side of the MCU. I hope they continue to push out new characters, but also do their stories with justice and double down on that instead of reaching back in the cookie jar. I don't want to see these old characters forever. I want to see these new fresh characters in new roles and with their new stories. And I really hope Steve Rogers' role in this movie is not a lead role, especially over Sam Wilson, Captain America. And I also hope that the new Avengers and Sam Wilson's Avengers and even the Fantastic Four do not get overshadowed by the older characters when this is supposed to be their movie where they shine, where they come together for the first time, which is what we've been building to since Phase 4. Whether you feel it was a good build-up or not, the build-up is still present.